They wanted me out of the picture, and they succeeded. But not in the way they thought they would. Before this story ends, you'll understand why silence hurts more than betrayal, and why the people closest to you can become strangers overnight. And before you decide whose side you're on, let me ask you something. Have you ever given your entire life to people who wouldn't even give you the truth? My name is Susan. I'm 70 years old, and for most of my life, I believe that love, real love, meant sacrifice. I believe that if you stayed quiet long enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, eventually you'd be seen. Eventually you'd be valued. Eventually you'd belong. I was wrong. I spent 46 years as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman who learned how to disappear quietly so others could shine. I cooked the meals, remembered the birthdays, paid the bills when money was tight, and stayed up late worrying about problems no one ever knew I carried. I was the glue, or at least that's what I thought. But glue dries, and once it does, people forget it was ever there. My husband passed away 8 years ago. His name was Robert. We didn't have a perfect marriage, but we had a long one. He worked, I raised the kids, and together we built a modest life in a quiet neighborhood where everyone waved and pretended to care. When he died, I thought the hardest part would be learning how to sleep alone in a bed meant for two. I was wrong again. The hardest part was realizing that once he was gone, I no longer had a role anyone needed. At first, my children checked in, phone calls every few days, Sunday dinners, smiles that felt a little forced, but I told myself that was just grief. People handle loss differently, I said. I made excuses for them the way mothers always do. Then the phone calls slowed, the dinner stopped, and conversations became rushed, shallow, uncomfortable. I started hearing phrases that didn't sit right. Mom, you should think about downsizing. Mom, this house is a lot for one person. Mom, wouldn't it be easier if you lived somewhere simpler? They never said what they really meant, not at first. What they meant was, you're in the way. The house I lived in wasn't big. It wasn't fancy, but it was paid off. It was filled with memories, handwritten growth marks on the doorframe, old photos tucked into drawers, and a cherry tree my husband planted the year our youngest was born. To me, it was home. To them, it was an asset. I noticed the changes slowly, the way you notice a crack in the wall you swear wasn't there yesterday. My daughter Karen started asking questions about my will. My son Michael suddenly became very interested in my finances. They framed everything as concern, as responsibility, as love. But love doesn't feel like pressure. Love doesn't feel like being cornered. One afternoon, Karen came over unannounced. She sat at my kitchen table, scrolling on her phone while I made tea. She barely looked at me when she said it. "Mom, we think it might be time for you to consider assisted living." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was shocking. Assisted living, I said. I drive, I cook, I garden. I live alone just fine. She sighed, actually sighed, as if I was being difficult. Well, accidents happen, and we can't always be here. That sentence stayed with me. We can't always be here. The truth was, they already weren't. Soon after that, paperwork appeared, documents I didn't ask for, appointments I didn't schedule, conversations that happened without me but were somehow about me. When I asked questions, I was told not to worry. When I pushed back, I was called stubborn. Do you know what it feels like to be slowly erased while you're still breathing? It's not loud. It's quiet. It's subtle. And by the time you realize what's happening, people act like it's already been decided. The day everything changed was the day they succeeded. It was a Tuesday, ordinary, forgettable. I remember the sunlight hitting the living room just right. I remember thinking I should water the plants later. Karen and Michael showed up together. That alone should have warned me. They sat me down, smiles tight, voices rehearsed. "Mom," said Michael, "this isn't easy." Nothing good ever follows that sentence. They told me the house would be sold, that arrangements had already been made, that it was for my own good, that I'd been moving into a facility temporarily. Temporary is a lie people tell when they don't want to say forever. I said no. They said it wasn't up to me. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. They didn't need my permission anymore. I cried. I begged. I remember them everything. The years, the sacrifices, the nights I stayed up when they were sick, scared, or struggling. I asked them when I stopped being their mother and started being a problem. They avoided my eyes. Within weeks, I was gone. Not to a warm place filled with care, but to a sterile room that smelled like disinfectant and loneliness. A room that didn't know my name, my memories, my life. They sold the house. They didn't tell me how much for. They didn't tell me where the money went. They stopped visiting. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I watched other residents get visitors. Balloons, laughter, hugs. I watched doors open and close that weren't mine. I learned how loud silence can be when it echoes through your chest. And then one day, the phone call stopped completely. They wanted me out of the picture. And they succeeded. Or so they thought. Because here's what they didn't expect. When everything is taken from you, something strange happens. You stop being afraid of losing. You start seeing clearly. I started writing. Letters at first, then notes, then truths I had buried for decades. I documented everything. Dates, conversations, signatures. I spoke to a legal aid volunteer who listened when no one else would. And slowly, quietly, I reclaimed something they couldn't touch. My voice. I won't tell you how this ends. Not completely, because this isn't just my story. It's a mirror. It's a warning. It's a question. What happens when parents give everything and are left with nothing? And what would you do if the people you loved most decided your life was no longer yours? If this story made you feel something, anger, sadness, or recognition, then you already understand why it needed to be told. Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this story if it mattered. And subscribe, because silence only wins when we let it. They wanted me out of the picture, but I'm still here, and so is the truth.